Yeah, the Braves are your better bet, even down to Ronald Acuna, who was over, Austin Riley, who was over. Don't think that's going to happen again today. It happened last night, and the Braves still did their thing. Now, you want to talk about offers. Jarvis, it felt like offers from deep from Trae Young last night. Yeah, he hit two. He hit two, but two feels like zero to me. It was unbelievable because, like we said at the beginning of the show, there were really good moments, especially in that first quarter for the most part, right? So you felt like, oh, wow, all of what Quinn Snyder has been tinkering with since game one on Saturday showed up in those first 15 minutes. However, or 12 minutes or 18, depending on how liberal you want to be. Mm-hmm. However, the Celtics literally said, okay, we've seen everything in the toolkit. Now, it's time for Big Bro to show you, but our toolkit is bigger. So they go on a 20-4 run, and yeah, the Hawks got it down to 8 at some point in the third quarter, thanks to the one and only Dejounte Murray. He was like a one-man wrecking crew in that third quarter, but ultimately speaking, the Celtics never really had this game out of hand. Why, Jarvis? Because, and yeah, I'm going to go on just a slight rant before I give it over to Jarvis. 119 to 106 may not seem like a big deal, but it is a big deal when you look at the fact that 5 times these teams have played, 5 times the margin of victory for the Celtics has been an average of 13.2 points. So 13 last night, 13 Saturday, and 13 the last 3 times. That to me is a challenge, Jarvis, but let's be real about it. Just talking about game 2. How did the Hawks get there?
Oh, wow. Where do I start? I'm going to go start with Trae Young. And when you think, like, we talking about flows of the game, right, before, Tenitra and I have some very interesting conversations. One of these days, we're going to put it out there. I don't know how Tenitra feels about that, but, we're going to put it out there one of these days to let y'all in on what we talk about off air. But, you talk about flows of the game, and I'll use the Celtics for example because they're a great example. Like, when you talk about, like, they're hitting shots, they're moving the ball, they're playing good defense, and you see the momentum, right? And then that starts to wane a little bit, for like a couple minutes or so. And then next thing you know, they hit a couple threes, they're right back in it, and they're right back into the flow of the game and doing exactly what you expect them to do. We never seen that from the Hawks. Like, because it'll be one time, like you start off, like using the first quarter, for example, they got off to a great start. And then it seems like once they got to 22 points, it was just like they lost their brains. Like they didn't understand like how to play basketball anymore. Start turning the ball over. And you start to see John Collins just doing crazy stuff. And just like, like if I remember every shot that you made in the first half, that's not a good thing, sir. Like, so when you have the combination of those two guys who you drafted, guys who you feel like are going to be staples in your organization under the previous regime, because we understand there are going to be some changes this summer, but those two guys who've been paid accordingly, they just didn't show up. And Dejounte Murray can't be the guy to try to do it on his own, T.
What a great point you make about doing it on your own. And we take nothing away from the fact that there's always that rando, although I can't call Derek White a rando because I wanted the Hawks to go after him last season.
He went on rando last night.
So let me be clear. I don't really think of Derek White as a rando because I was sad when the Hawks did not grab him. When the Hawks didn't acquire him last season, I was like, darn it. I really thought Derek White would have made a huge
made a lot of
sense.
Here.
And so that was, of course, before the Dejounte Murray trade. I was all in on Derek White. So he showed up for Boston last night from their bench. And, of course, it was just an off night for the bench for the Hawks. It happens. We're not going to leave it at the feet of anyone from the bench mob because your starters are where we're going to leave this thing. The reason being, going back to the Dejounte Murray trade, and you just mentioned it, we were thinking, okay, there's a guy. Yeah, the Hawks might need one more guy in order to get to the Eastern Conference Finals or even to get to the NBA Finals. But with this guy, at a minimum, if every other starter plays like he's supposed to play, they should be able to get into the second round of the playoffs and at least compete to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Right. Why in the world are we still having a conversation about a team that got out of the play-in, but at the rate they're going in the opening round, may not even get past 4 games. And I'm not trying to be negative, pessimistic, or dark in my thought process.
Keeping it funky, that's all.
I'm simply saying, yes, I'm simply saying that one guy can't be the game changer. DJ can't be the game changer if the other 4 around him aren't 3. If the other 3 around him aren't giving it to him, because I'm not going to lay this at Clint Capella's feet. Clint Capella's been solid. Where I'm going to lay this is at Trae's, JC's, and DeAndre's. It got to the point where we do a pre-brief, right? Mm-hmm. Pre-show, we didn't even bring up Dre. That's how invisible
and he was awful, T. Like, in like basic stuff, dribbling the basketball. Like, how do you... Yeah, like how this dude dribbling the basketball, it looks like he just learned how to do it. And he's falling back into, just learning how to play basketball and learn how to dribble. T, and I'm just like, dude, what is going on with this cat? Like, it's too many guys on this roster, T, that when you see them play, go through a quarter or go through 2 quarters or even a whole game, it's too many guys where I sit up there and watch and say, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
It's too many guys on this roster that my response, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, like, what are you doing? Even Trae Young, T, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, we say that more about veterans because after your 3rd year, I'm calling you a veteran.
Absolutely.
We say that more about the veteran starters than we do about the rookie, AJ Griffin. Like, we haven't had this conversation a lot about him, although I know he's not a part of the rotation right now for Quinn Snyder, but ultimately speaking, we shouldn't be having this conversation. You and I shouldn't be saying, wait a minute, John Collins didn't score again after the 3rd minute in the game. Should not be a part of our conversation. Wait a minute, Trae Young has shot, 3 for 18 from 3 across 2 games? That should not be a part of our conversation. Also, you taking 22 shots and only getting, 24 points out of it? Yeah. That shouldn't be a part of our conversation.
Yeah.
I can't even put words into it other than to say, at this point, you almost don't have a choice but to kind of look at the offseason because it's clear to see.
That's where we are right now.
It's clear to see that you might be more than just one more player away from even getting to the 2nd round with what you're showing these first couple of games. Now, what it might look like when they come back to State Farm Arena Friday, okay, fine. Jarvis and I will look at that. But Jarvis, the mental lapses that we saw last night, things like taking 6-7 seconds off the 24-second clock just to bring the ball up, and then you're driving the lane against somebody who is about to pick your pockets because they're about a foot taller than you. These are just things that we've seen that it's like, Jarvis, how many times are we going to see this team revert back to some of those bad habits?
This team is mentally weak. Can I just go ahead and say that? I think I've said it before on this show, but I want to go ahead and press that point a little bit because here's the thing. When you have guys always talking about, we weren't mentally prepared or we weren't mentally there and all you're doing is admitting that you're mentally weak as a team and as an individual. Yes, John, I'm talking about you. Because when you think about, guys continue to point out certain things about what's going on, and I give Trae a little credit after the game last night. He said, hey, I got to play better. I'm going to play better. I get that. And putting yourself out on the line, those are leadership skills, people. Yeah, you got to at least respect that to a certain degree. So when you have all of these things going on and have all of these guys going to the mental jabbing that they're going throughout these games, and you don't know what's going on in these guys' heads, it's too many though. It's too many guys going through that, right? And it's showing on the court night in and night out. And these last 2 games that the Hawks have played have just been awful. It's just what it is.
It really has. And like you said, this is one of those things where at the end of the day, what we want to see is just a little bit more of the flashes that you give. 13 points, especially in the league, it's not a whole heck of a lot. Let's face it. I mean, you can hit 2 or 3 threes and you're right back in this thing. That's how they, in part, got it down to 8 points. The challenge with that is, and something else you said as well, the challenge with that is when you have mental lapses. Let me back up. When the Celtics have mental lapses that in real time, not basketball time, might be 2 to 3 minutes, and then when they reset, they go hard.
Yeah.
You can't.
They go
then
right to
have,
right. They reset right back to where they were.
And it's an immediate reset.
Yes,
Doesn't take a timeout. They reset themselves at this point. You can't then afford to have 6 or 7 minutes of real time trying to reset, and then Quinn Snyder has to reset you. Like, that can't keep happening. Not if the intent
too many veterans
is
on this team to have to do that.
Just too many veterans on this team. So like we said, hopefully somehow, some way, you got 3 days to kind of reset yourselves before you come back home and make this a bit of a series. And we are still hoping that that's going to happen. But boy, oh boy, what we saw last night, which was still what we saw on Saturday too.
Yikes.
It's a long road to Friday. But hey, everydayers, you guys rock with us, and we know on some level you got to keep rocking with the Hawks. And we don't blame you. We don't blame you because they're not counted out until they're counted out, right? Just like you guys don't count us out because you're always all in with ATL Day One. So we appreciate you guys always stopping by this set. First and foremost, you watch us on YouTube, and even when we are on some can't get right, like you all told us we were on one aspect of our show yesterday, you know what? We still love on you guys because, hey, at least you take the time to comment, and that means you actually care. So we appreciate that. Appreciate you guys downloading us as well, wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your colleagues so they can become everydayers too.